Hi, everybody. I am Bishop James Long, and it is an absolute gorgeous day right here in Kentucky. Behind me, you would think that this is a peaceful, kind of a calm place, a place where you could go and just kind of get away from the stresses of life. But looks can be deceiving. This is the one location that I have talked about for over 20 years. This location is known as the Gates of Hell Cemetery. I'm here by myself actually filming. And I got to tell you, during the day, it is a peaceful place, but you know that you're not alone. You have that feeling that you're being watched. This is the only location that I've ever been to where at night it is a different place. You see, during the day it seems peaceful, and it is, but at night it is a place where everything in your body is telling you to run away from. And that is no exaggeration. As a matter of fact, there's about a 2-mile road, a country road that kind of leads to a dead end where the cemetery is. And even during the day, you feel a little eeriness, but at night, your body is screaming at you to turn around. It is truly, this is one of the most remarkable and probably one of the most haunted locations that I have ever been to in my entire life. And people are always asking me, well, about, locations and haunted locations. Is there a particular location that I would tell people to stay away from? This is it. And this really is one of the reasons why I'm doing this documentary. There's a lot of people who are coming to this area and they find what they're looking for, but later they regret that they found it. It's actually known as Casey Cemetery, and it's an old abandoned cemetery that unfortunately a lot of people are coming to, and they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And in this documentary, I'm going to be explaining some of the things that people have done. And it really is, I think, problematic on all levels, that anyone would come to a cemetery, whether it's kind of abandoned or not. Not when I say abandoned, it's no longer being used. And it's no longer being used because it's being desecrated so much. And behind me, you can see even tombstones that have been desecrated. And we'll talk about that in this documentary. But I really wanted to do this because what a lot of people don't know is that we are actually the individuals who named this cemetery the Gates of Hell. And it really is. It's a location that I don't think exists anywhere else in the world. So for those of you who are interested in this particular cemetery, please understand that there are individuals who are resting in peace here. And so I think it is my responsibility as clergy to remind people that if they come here, always be respectful. Please don't desecrate the tombstones. And for the love of God, stop with the animal sacrifices, which actually occur. And we're going to talk about that in this documentary as well. It really is problematic what people do. I don't understand. But hopefully you enjoy the documentary. Hopefully this will give shed a light onto the Gates of Hell Cemetery, and perhaps maybe give you a different perspective on a location in which even I, as an exorcist for the church, don't like coming to at night. One of the things that people ask all the time is, how did the cemetery actually become known as the Gates of Hell Cemetery? Well, and over about 20 years ago, probably about 24 actually, there were some folks who contacted me in this area, and they had said that there were individuals coming up, desecrating the graves, performing satanic rituals, and their loved ones were actually buried here. And they had asked if I would be willing to come out and bless the area, and even perhaps maybe investigate, because allegedly there had been some activity in this area? So we said, yeah. And no one even knew this place existed 20 years ago. It's an old abandoned cemetery. It's a dead end road. And so our team came out and we investigated during the day, and we got some really compelling evidence. So orbs, we got a couple of growls, we got some EVPs, which stands for electronic voice phenomena. So we certainly did the documentation showing, yes, there's activity here. But then we did an investigation at night. And that is when all hell broke loose. So we left, we came here during the day, we did our investigations, and then we left to go to grab something to eat and then come back later in the evening. And I got to tell you, that's when I first experienced the total change in the area. And what I mean by that is at night, during the day when we got here, it was eerie. We definitely felt the presence. But when we left and we came back that evening on the road, it was at night, on the road back here to the cemetery, I was in a car, and then there was another car in front of me. And it was kind of it's dark, and we were going slow because of the potholes. And so the car stopped in front of me, and I thought, well, what's going on? I mean, originally I thought perhaps maybe they hit a pothole or something, but they didn't, and they kind of sped up. They waited for a little while, and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. And then they sped up and they did a turnaround, and they came back and they asked, where'd they go? Where did who go? What are you talking about? And they were saying that they saw two kids going down in the middle of that road. And it was a little girl, and she was pushing a little boy in a wheelchair. And she had apparently moved over to the left when the car in front of me went beside her, because they were asking just to make sure if the cemetery was down here. And she didn't say anything. Nothing at all. They said that they asked, is this where Casey Cemetery is? We just need to make sure we're not lost. Because remember, that was the first time we were here other than during the day. And it was at night. So it was a different experience. And so they asked, is that where the cemetery was? And there was no expression, apparently. There was nothing. And she just kind of veered off to the road and was walking and disappeared. Now, I didn't see any of this. I saw nothing. So when they came back, they were white as ghosts. I mean, they were absolutely terrified. And these people are pretty, pretty good individuals as far as they don't like to lie. They're not interested in making up stories. The individuals that told me this, I have no reason to doubt that what they saw, they legitimately saw and they experienced. And that was our first, I think, experience as far as coming here at night. So we continue, and keep in mind, these kids could not have just vanished, because on this road, it's a very small, narrow road. There was a barbed wire fence to the left, and there was a barbed wire fence to the right. So there was nowhere for them to go. And they certainly didn't come towards me, because I would have seen them. They just vanished. Absolutely vanished. And I think that was the moment where we realized, okay, this is a different world at night. And it was. And so when we came here and we pulled that to where it dead ends, we all felt an extreme heavy presence. Every one of us. And all of us, our sixth sense, if you will, was telling us, turn around, go home, leave this place alone. But we didn't, because we made a promise that we would be here and that we would investigate, which we did. And that is the night where I heard a growl. I didn't hear it with a disembodied voice. I played it back on the car. We caught it through EVP. But that was the night that we heard a growl that, or to me, it was probably one of the best evidence I've ever captured in my entire life. And I played it before on shows. And we'll talk about that during this documentary, about where that growl was heard. And I'll actually play it at the exact location where we heard heard the growl. We saw some creature that had green fluorescent eyes. And it looked like it was bending over and then bending down, hiding behind a tree. And it was rather large. Have no idea what this is. And then, of course, the one creature that I saw, and not only did I see, but 3 other people saw, that I cannot describe. I don't know what it was. Matter of fact, it was right in this tree, right behind me. And I'll talk about that creature as well in the documentary. And even to this day, 20 years later, it bothers me because I can't define that creature. We all saw it. Bishop David Price was with me, and 2 other investigators were there that night. You know, with demonology, you can define it. But this creature, it was something that I can't, and it was a different feeling. With a demonic presence, you know. But with this creature, it was something otherworldly. I don't know. I can't really describe it, and I'll talk about that in this documentary because I think it's important that we discuss it, and I tell you what I saw, and perhaps maybe you can give me your input on it. But I think this is one location, without question, that if you come here at night, you're going to be looking for something that perhaps maybe you don't want to find. And so I would strongly encourage you to stay away unless you truly want to find something that could be quite dangerous. This is Reverend Mother Elizabeth Winters to tell her story about her experience with the Gates of Hell Cemetery.
Yeah, so back in the days of St. Christopher Parish, we actually had a paranormal team visit us for Mass, and then we all went out to dinner. After that, it was nighttime, and we said, hey, you all want to go out to the Gates of Hell? You know, so they were like, yeah, sure, you know, something for us to do. So we came out here, and I mean, it was windy that night. Well, we were back here in this area. Of course, summertime, so all of this is really thick. And from the parking lot, you couldn't even see in between where I'm standing from the parking lot. So it was around the time that we had just decided, you know, we're going to let them go ahead and investigate, do what they're doing. I had walked back to the parking lot where Bishop James was standing, and Bishop Price was here that night as well. And we noticed that the wind had stopped. The wind had actually stopped and everything went quiet. Well, we could see from that perspective, you had shadow people. They were just circling the entire tree. And as he stated, when he said, okay, it was time to go, well, I'm loud. Anybody that knows me here at the church knows that. And so I'm standing back there and I'm screaming, hey, it's time to go. Hey, it's time to go. But they didn't hear me. So I walked from all the way back in the driveway, up the path, back here to get them and said, come on, it's time to go. Well, they were all like, you know, why are we, like, what happened? Like, why are we leaving? And then that's when we told them that you don't even realize what was going on. I mean, they were under attack. So, yeah, this place is truly, it's the real deal. That I'll say, it's the absolute real deal.
So right here behind me, we were here with the first time that we were here, the paranormal team, and it's to the right of the cemetery. And behind this gate, you can't really see it, this wired fence, there are lots and lots of caves. Of course, a lot of wild animals, you know, exist there as well. But when we were over there, we would hear like children laugh. And it was a lot of laughter. We would hear them almost as if they were playing hide and seek. And it was whispering. That's only the best way to describe it. It sounded like a bunch of people whispering, a bunch of kids whispering. We couldn't really detect what they were saying necessarily, but it definitely was sounding like children. Imagine if you're at a playground or you see a playground a little further away from you and the kids are laughing and they're giggling and they're talking. You don't really know what they're saying, but they're saying something. That's what it was. And we were probably about 10 feet down, a little bit closer to the fence. but it was everywhere. I mean, we heard them running back and forth because there's leaves back there. There's leaves, there's twigs, there's everything, and we would hear what sounds like to us a bunch of kids just playing hide and go seek. Now, of course, I tell people that when you go to a location that is allegedly haunted, and there is children that are present, I am very concerned, because many times the cases that I've worked where there were apparitions where there were children, it was demonic. And certainly there's no question that the demonic realm exists here. That there's no doubt about that. But this section here is one place that I'll never forget. And actually down the ravine, they have that as even the witch's cave is the terminology that a lot of the locals will use that around here. So, but if you come here, you don't want to ever go obviously across this the rope, because it's private property. So stay away from that section. We're back here by the witch's tree, and I want to play this for you because I want you to hear what we heard all night. When we were here at one time, we were hearing growls everywhere. But this one particular growl, we did not hear. Now, if you could hear it, it's a disembodied voice, but we didn't hear this. When I took it back to the car and I played it, I almost flung the headsets off, because when I heard this on my digital recorder, I think it gave us a different perspective of what this type of place was. So we were here, and this was around midnight or so, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was just simply asking, are you friendly? Is there anyone here? Can you make a noise? Who are you? Etc. Just a basic, your foundation questions that you ask for EVP work. And this is what we captured. Take a listen. Is there anyone here? Are you friendly? But that is the type of activity that you capture here at the gates of Hell Cemetery. And that is why I tell people all the time, it really is not a place to come here at night. It's not really a place to come here anyway, unless you're wanting to clean up or to let people know, hey, look, stop coming up here to desecrate and doing stupid stuff. But this really is, when you hear things of this nature, when you hear that type of growl, and this is where we were, right here at this location when that happened. And that was also the night where we would see shadow people everywhere. I mean, the shadow people were just running. The only way to describe it is they were darting from behind the trees. And so they would start, and one would dart here, and then they would dart another one, and there were hundreds of them. I mean, it wasn't just a few, it was hundreds of them. And they were everywhere. They were surrounding us. I mean, they were darting behind the trees everywhere. Because around this is a fence. And of course, there's also caves behind there as well. And there's a lot of activity in those locations. But here, we would see shadow people. And that's where we said, is there anyone here? Can you make a noise? And this is where we capture that amazing EVP. And hopefully it's a reminder to people. This truly does exist. So right behind me, as I talked about earlier, is known as the witch's tree. And I've been up here quite a few times, and I've seen, animal sacrifices, animal carcasses. And there was one particular time where I came here, and there was an altar that was actually set up. And the altar was right here, and it was roughly about this tall, and maybe 3-4 feet wide. And it was placed here, and there was a cat that had been mutilated. And by the body of the cat, there was a skull placed on the altar. On top of the skull here, it was a black candle. And you can see the black candle clearly was being lit because it was almost down to the skull. There were also 2 red candles on each side of the altar. And there were some other things I'm not going to go into. But the cat obviously had been tortured. And the mutilization, I mean, it was terrible. It was quite terrible. So I actually buried the cat. I took the altar down, destroyed the altar, buried the cat here, and I took this. Now, there's nothing really special about this particular skull in that you can purchase this online, you can purchase this anywhere. But I got to tell you, when I came up here and when I saw the altar, this was kind of during at twilight, when the area was about to change. And what I mean by that is when you come up here to the gates of Hell Cemetery, this is not the same place during the day as it is at night. These are two different locations. And this, when it comes at night, this entire location is totally different. Totally different. I mean, you feel the oppression, the heaviness, you feel the demonic. It's quite, it's oppressive. That's the best word to describe it. During the day, it's quaint. I mean, it's a torn down, unfortunately, cemetery that a lot of people have done a lot of damage to. But at night, I don't come here at night. And there's a reason that I don't come here at night, is because if I do, then I know that I'm asking for trouble. And I'm going to find it. And for example, like this. This is the type of stuff that people do to this type of ground. And what bothers me about this is you have to remember that this is a cemetery. That families come here to visit their loved ones, and they see people coming up here and desecrating the tombs, the grave sites, the ridiculous altar that people have done, and that's just simply not right. So yeah, I understand that the gates of Hell Cemetery may be alluring to a lot of people because you want to see it. But then when you're here and you have people coming up here doing desecration and harming animals, don't preach to me. Don't preach to me that Satanism is not evil. Don't preach to me that there's nothing neurotic, evil about Satanism, because there is. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and I really don't care, because that was a satanic ritual. And for anybody to come up here to have an altar and to harm an animal, all for the glory of Satan, well, then maybe one day when you breathe your last, you'll hear the flap of his wings. All right, this is the segment that I want to talk about in this creature that we saw in this tree right here. You know, I talk about this episode that I experience quite often when I do my online shows. And it does bother me because I can't define it. I can't explain what it was that I saw. So it was me and 3 other investigators, and it was around midnight. And we were here to do another investigation. And this path that you see here, this is the only path in, and it's the same path out. So it's a very small cemetery. It's not very large at all. As a matter of fact, there's a horseshoe, basically a fence, all the way around the cemetery. And it closes in right here in the entrance and the exit. And so we were back at the witch's tree. And it was a very clear night. It was around midnight. The moon, as a matter of fact, was right behind this tree. It was a full moon. So it was relatively, we had light here so we could see because of the full moon. But when we were back at the very end, at the very back there at the cemetery, at the witch's tree, the trees began to just sway back and forth. And of course, this was in the middle of summer, so the crickets were also out and making their noises, but then everything stopped. It was totally silent. And the only thing that we could hear were the trees, the very top of the trees, just swaying back and forth and back and forth. What was odd is we could not feel anything. We felt nothing, no wind where we were at the back of the witch's tree. We felt nothing, but we saw the wind. And that was alarming to us. That was concerning. And then we would actually see shadow people. And shadow people are, and these were full body apparitions. We could actually see, originally we thought they were locals trying to scare us, because it started out with just a couple, 2, 3. And so we were in the back, and they would dart in between the trees, and in behind the trees, basically. And it started on this side, and then it started on the other side. So it began as 2 or 3 on this, and then 2 or 3 on this, and so now we're up to 6 or 7, and then it began to 10 and 15 and 20. We knew, and what it was is they were coming closer and closer. It was as if they were caving in, as if they were closing the exit off. And we knew at that moment it was time to go, because there was something obviously not right with seeing that many. And these, like I said, these were full body apparitions of shadow people. People ask me all the time, do I think are shadow people evil? Not necessarily. You know, I've been into haunted locations where I've seen shadow people and it was not demonic at all. Then I've been into locations such as here and I've seen shadow people, and there's absolute no question at all these things were evil, because we felt it. It was the sensation was overwhelming. So we were back, the wind was blowing, the crickets stopped, everything was silent except for the wind. And we saw the shadow people all around us. And David Price, Bishop David Price was with me as well. And we knew there was time, we had to go. Because if we had proceeded to stay, we all felt the same thing, that someone was going to get hurt. And it is interesting that we all felt an incredible sense of threat. Even one individual who was a skeptic, who was with us. And even he said, it's time to go. I don't like this, it's time to go. Every single one of us, all 4 of us, we all felt the same thing. Get out, and get out now. So that's what we did. So we came, of course, down this path, and we came out to a little further away from where the camera is, about 10, 15 feet. And we were looking towards the exit, talking about what we just experienced. And of course, this was 15, 20 years ago, and you know, they didn't have, you know, the flashlights that they have now. They had the old kind of flashlights where they had, you know, the D batteries or C batteries, and you put them in there. And there was one of the investigators, who was the skeptic, was facing towards the cemetery. And while us three were talking about what we were experiencing, what we saw, what was that? We heard a rattle, like a rattling noise. And we looked at the investigator who was to our right, and he was shining a flashlight on this tree. His face was pale as ghost. He was completely catatonic. The only thing that he could do was, he was shaking. That's how scared he was. So we asked him, well, you know, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he wouldn't say anything. He wouldn't respond, nothing. He just kept shining the flashlight on this tree. And so we all turned around and we saw what he was looking at. Now, this is what bothers me, and I've talked about this before. This is what bothers me so much, because I can't define it. I don't know what it is. And a lot of people tell me it's Mothman, or it's this, or it's that. I don't know. Some people say it's a gatekeeper. Some people say it's a watcher. Whatever it was clear to us, all of us, that if we had moved a foot closer, it was going to harm us. So what we all saw in this tree, I'd say is about 10 feet tall. And to me, it looked like a massive bat. That's the only way that I can describe it. The wings were actually outstretched from this end, way over there, to this end. It covered the entire tree. And keep in mind, this was a full moon. So the moon was shining right behind us, so we could see the entire thing. Plus, the flashlight was bright on it. We saw this creature. It wasn't a silhouette. We actually saw it. And again, Bishop David Price will validate everything that I'm saying, because he saw it as well. We all saw it. To me, it was about 10 feet tall, and it had the wings were outstretched. It had a long torso. I wouldn't say the legs were very long, but it was so clear we could see the claws on the feet. So we could actually see the claws on the feet. And it had a bat face. It looked like, to me, a very large bat. The unique thing about this particular creature is that it had red fluorescent eyes, very bright. And it looked directly at us. There was no screeching, there was no growls, there was nothing. But every one of us knew that if we moved 1 inch closer, it was going to attack us. That was the one moment I would honestly can say in my entire paranormal experience and life that I was genuinely terrified. Now, I've been afraid before. My first time investigating was at Waverly Hills when it was abandoned. And the owner at that time allowed people to go investigate. So, and I did, and I experienced something paranormal there. That was scary. But this was terrifying. Now, I've performed 31 exorcisms on people who were truly, truly possessed. I've been to many people's homes where there was demonic activity. You know, when you're dealing with possession, you know what you're dealing with. You know how to handle it. You know how to define it. But this creature, I couldn't define it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know its nature. I didn't know what its purpose was, other than to terrify us, which it did. But it posed no threat, imminent threat, unless we all moved closer. Then we knew it was going to pose a very serious threat. So people say, again, that this thing was Mothman. Maybe, I don't know. Or like I said, a gatekeeper or a watcher, or I don't know. I don't know. I can define it. I can explain it to you as far as what it looked like. I will never forget this creature. When I think about it now, I can picture it in my mind to its complete and total detail. Every detail I can tell. Even the torso was well defined. It was that clear. And this is a place where I tell people that there are things that exist here that we simply have no explanation for. And because of that, I think it makes this location one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had as an exorcist and as a paranormal investigator. So I decided to do something that I wasn't going to do, but I thought, let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to do a brief investigation right here at the gates of hell. I'm going to use what a lot of people use on sometimes the iPhone. They like this. There's an app that you can purchase. And because I'm not going to advertise for the app, because I'm not being produced by them or sponsored, I want to play perhaps maybe just this app and see if we can perhaps get any type of response. So we do not allow any evil to come through. What is your name?
A priest.
You see it, a priest. Whoever said a priest, what is your name? Gail? I think she said Gail because it was a woman. Gail, how old are you, Gail? I don't know what that was. You can help me with a priest again. Wow. That's very odd. Gail, are you the one saying a priest? Say yes or no, please.
And his has
Fail.
Who else is here? Tell me your name.
Fail.
Phil, he's come through several times. Phil, you have come through several times. Do you know what my last name is?
Zach.
Zach has come through multiple times, hasn't it? Is it evil here?
Go.
Reap.
Yes.
Is
Ovilus, on.
We're going to do another app. It's called the Ovilus.
100.
I actually have the original Ovilus, which is very rare. Is there anyone here? If so, what is your name?
Legion.
You see, folks, that's when you know it's time to go. So here we are at the conclusion of the documentary. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I really tried to explain and even show you some of my own personal experiences. You've got to see a location that I've talked about now for over 20 years. And not only that, but kind of did an impromptu investigation. And so the evidence that we captured is pretty amazing just for that few seconds that we did. And then, of course, when the Ovilus mentioned Legion, it was time to go. This place will let you know when it's time to leave. And when that happens, you need to do that. If you choose to come to this location to visit, please remember that this is a cemetery and that people's loved ones are buried here. And although this documentary certainly is here to teach you about demonology and my experiences, being here, but it's also to educate people on coming here and performing satanic rituals or desecrating tombstones. It's so irresponsible. This is the final resting place for these people who once had lives, and their families live in this area. And they just want people to, if they're going to come here, then be respectful. Don't litter, don't destroy, don't set up altars for Lucifer. Don't harm animals, don't invoke. It's just common sense things you think that people would understand. But I am concerned that people will continue to show up. They'll continue to invite and provoke. They'll continue doing rituals, desecrating this land. And I think that's a shame. From my experiences, I look and I see a place that has a rich history. It is a beautiful place, but in its very essence, as you can see, it definitely has a story to tell. And the story during the day is that this is a resting place for people's loved ones. And the story at night is when evil comes out. And that is a shame. My name is Bishop James Long, and I appreciate you watching the Gates of Hell Cemetery.